thank you, everybody. Just to check you're all in the right panel, this is the one on the pros and cons of staying in one school from 2 to 18. So choosing the right school is obviously one of the most important decisions that parents are going to make. And so what is the best route? Is it better for a child to remain in the same school all the way to sixth form, or to move at natural transition points such as 11 and 13? In this panel, we will weigh up the security and stability of an all-through education against the opportunities afforded by a transition between age and stage-specific schools. I'm Selina Boyd, I'm with the Good Schools Guide, and joining me today we have Chris Townsend, head of Felsted School, a co-ed day and boarding school an hour outside of London in Essex. They bring students aged 4 to 18 together on one unified campus with sections for pre-prep, prep, seniors and sixth form. Chris has been head for a decade, but I believe is moving on at Easter.
That's right, yes.
Good, okay. We have Iona Hutchinson, who's Director of Admissions at Charterhouse School. Charterhouse is a co-ed day and boarding school for students aged 13 to 18 in Godalming. And while Charterhouse is a secondary school, it announced a merger in 2021 with Edgeborough, a prep school in Farnham, and very recently announced a second merger with Windlesham House, a prep school in West Sussex. And I'm sure at some point in this panel, Iona will talk us through how that works and whether students are come on or not to Charterhouse. And last but not least, we have Colin Baty, head of Danes Hill School, a co-ed day school in Oxshott, which is for pupils aged 2 to 13. And unless I've missed any headlines, I believe that you are still firmly an independent prep school. Colin started earlier this year, but is a career prep head, having come from Bedales Prep, before that Great Felsted, and deputy head at Moreton Hall Prep. The Good Schools Guide describes Danes Hill as a big, bouncy, confident school with hard-to-match facilities, a focus on well-being, and a determination to find children's strengths. And I think that's a good place to start. Children change a lot in that window in earlier years. So do parents see it as an advantage that the school and you as a head get to know the children and then can advise parents on their strengths and perhaps where they should go next?
Thank you very much for having us here today. It's a real pleasure. Yes, we do get to know the children. We are a thriving and large prep school, but within our school we obviously have our form classes, our head of years, our sections of the school, but also belong to 4 very strong houses which their children are very passionate about. Along their journey with us, we get to know them very, very well. We've got amazing facilities so the children can actually try everything, and I mean everything from cooking to climbing to all the sports on offer. With that, we get to know the children's character, and we also get to know actually where's they best placed to go to at the end of their journey with us at Year 8. In the last 2 years, we've fed to 37 senior schools, which means we're not just putting all our eggs in one basket. We're talking very carefully to the parents, which actually starts in Year 5, and we talk them through the processes because every school's slightly different, and to enable us to do that, we can give them really tailored advice. We actually call it our free consultation because my deputy head pastoral, he does that, and that's his job on Wednesday. Rather than being on matches, he tends to go and visits senior schools, their admissions departments, their senior colleagues, and I do a little bit outside that in the lunches and the dinners and talk about the children that are coming through to the senior schools. So we've got some really neat and strong relationships with those schools to make sure the children go to the school that's right for them. And that's basically what it's about. They're all good schools, like here today. They're all really good schools, but it's got to be right for your child, okay? And you just got to think carefully about that. And I always say, trust that warm fuzziness that you might get if you're coming into buying a house or something like that. And that's a really good, that sixth sense. Please use it because that will guide you tremendously well for your child because you know them better than anyone. There we go.
Thank you. So, Chris, conversely, at Felsted, the majority of pupils move seamlessly through your school sections. Do you really see parents sort of making that decision early on when they're 4, or what do you see as the advantages for children to stay in one school?
Yeah, for some parents it is a decision that's made very early on. They're looking for the right place to live so that they can be close enough to the school to go all the way through, and that's for the right family, that's a really important decision to make. Where we're based, that means that they might live rurally but still be able to work in London as well, which with flexible working is now a much more enticing thing, I suppose. And for the children, I guess, as Colin said, it's about knowing the child, and the advantage, or one of the advantages of coming all the way through, is that you really do know the children as they come through as individuals, and you're not trying to package them into any particular thing. You're trying to find their strengths and their passions and be able to develop them over time. So for the right child and the right family, that continuity can be a real strength, and being part of that community is a really big part of being in a school, feeling that you belong. And I guess as well, if families have got 2 or 3 children at different stages, then to be able to be in one place can be logistically can be quite helpful as well. So, there are pluses to either approach, but definitely for the right family, that commitment over time, getting to know the place, and of course schools change as you go through as well. So your experience as a sixth former is going to be very different from your experience as a pre-prep student, but hopefully there's still some of the same culture and value and ethos that they can be a part of as they come through.
Yes, thank you. That's something that we'll definitely pick up on, actually. Iona, your students are joining you from all across the country. You've got links to prep schools, but that doesn't mean that students necessarily join straight from those. What talk us through your model?
No, thank you. Yeah, so we welcome all our children at 13 plus into year 9, and they come from a huge number of prep schools and from schools overseas as well. And I love that year 9, that's that real sort of foundation year before we head into the dreaded GCSEs and the A-levels and IB and all of that. And I think it's very much what Colin was saying is, the children change and develop so much. And we work so closely with all the different prep schools, whether they're part of our group or not. Actually, we always have lovely kids from Townsend. And it's really about trusting the head to give that advice and see how the children have developed. That year 7 and 8 in prep school, gosh, they change so much. It's magical, that 7 and 8. It's really where that confidence grows. They're at the top of their prep school. They've got all those leadership opportunities, and they're still having great fun at prep school before they join a rather more serious, but still fun, senior school. Does that help?
Absolutely. And I think that, the sort of fit across ages is a really sort of interesting point. And Colin, starting with you, do you see that change is an opportunity for a fresh start? Do you ever see children who perhaps become pigeonholed in the early years, and it's an opportunity for them to shake that up?
Yes, possibly. I think there is. Some children, to be frank, really do suit an all-through school. And now it could be for them, it could be logistically for their family, as Chris touched on. But as Iona was saying, I see children in year 5 and 6, and we're looking at X schools, and we've got sort of 3 or 4 we're thinking really seriously about. By the time they get to the end of year 7, year 8, it may have changed. If you think about a child's life, from 10 to 12, that's a massive percentage of their life on this planet, and they can change huge amounts. So it's just keeping an open mind, because I know there's a shift at 11 plus and all those sort of things, but just be very mindful of that. To be in a prep school to 13, I actually love it when they're in the summer term and they're saying to me, I can't wait to leave, I'm ready to go. That's what we want to hear, because they are actually ready to go. Some children, it take a bit longer and they get through the summer holidays and then they're ready to go. But the idea is they're a big fish in a small pond, and they're at the top of their school, and they get that moment to actually graduate, I suppose you could say, and move on to their senior school. But one size doesn't fit all. You've got to look at the child and what makes them tick. And I have seen children leave at year 6 who actually do really, really well, and others we've had it this year who've done that, then come back because they wanted to experience those last few years. So it's horses for courses, I suppose, in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that big fish in a small pond is an interesting one. Iona, do you ever find that you have children who join you who have been thriving in prep school and suddenly come to this newer, bigger experience and find it takes them a while to find their feet?
Yes, it does, but we put a huge amount of work into that Year 9 programme. So they're all arriving and we literally make them try absolutely everything. And there's a no choice attached to that, and I love the no choice because it really pushes them out of their comfort zone, and they're all doing it together. So when I have met kids in the past who say, I never do theatre, I'm never picked for the play, and then 2 weeks later I'm like, and what are you doing up there? It's lovely because they're all enthusiastic and they're all trying it together. It is a fresh start in a way, but it's also just that opportunity, literally, to step out of your comfort zone and go for it. And they do. They arrive with that mindset, and we encourage that mindset.
Lovely. Chris, you can spin that the other way. What happens for you when you have children who perhaps the family have set their heart that this is going to be the school for them, but actually you as a school, as you get to know them, feel that perhaps the seniors isn't the right environment for them? Is that a conversation that you would have with parents?
Yeah, occasionally that can be. I think there's something that we've all touched upon, which is that positive choice is really important. So even for a family who end up staying for 14 years in Felsted with one child, we'd want them to think about the other options, because we want them to make the positive choice that this is right for them and for their child. Because I think if the child really is part of that decision-making process, then the chance of success is so much greater. And actually looking elsewhere and seeing and thinking, well, actually maybe things aren't better there, and I could do this if I stay here, can be a really powerful a powerful motivator for that child to get the best out of them. I think you're also always through school, you want to encourage a culture of I'll give it a go, even at 11 or 13 or 16. Maybe they haven't tried something, and maybe they're still going to find their real passion in life a bit later on through their schooling. So always give it a go, and if it doesn't work, that doesn't matter. Do something else. So I think whether it's in a prep school environment, in a senior environment, or in an all-through environment, you always want that open-minded approach to what else is out there and what else you can be doing, because that's growth in the individual, and that's what we all want. We want the young people in our care to go on and be the best versions of themselves.
Do you, out of interest, when children are moving into the senior section, do you give parents a tour of the senior school as if they were new families?
Oh, totally, yeah, absolutely. From quite a long way out. Partly we want to show them what there is, but we also want them to be part of that, and not just this. It's interesting when you've got maybe a third child from a family coming through, and parents might say, I don't need to see that. I always think that's the wrong approach. They do need to see it, because they're not seeing it for them, they're seeing it for the child. So being part of that process and being part of that decision making is, I think, is really important for every child coming through.
And sorry, we will move on to one more question on that. What about sort of test stress? That transition, does a model like Felsted does it remove some of that test stress? Does it, dare I say it, remove any of the sort of ferocious tutoring culture that perhaps some schools can see? I would definitely say so. That children do far too many exams anyway, and we heard a little bit about the pressures of GCSEs. The number of exams people do is far too high. So what one entry is what we offer as a school. If you come in, unless there are reasons why the curriculum doesn't work or something else, then it's one entry point and you're in all the way through. So that gives more freedom in the curriculum as well. So for years 7 and 8, they're not working towards common entrance. They're able to have a bit more freedom to explore as well, which I think is now common across the sector as well. That is definitely a factor for some. See, And Iona, for you, do you see parents at your sort of linked prep schools asking questions about whether that's going to give them a seamless entry to Charterhouse, or what's your approach there?
I think it's the same actually across with all our prep schools. So our prep school heads, as such, are looking to make sure that the school the children are going to is the right school for them. And that is so important. And for some, Charterhouse might be the right school, but for others it isn't, and it might not be what the parent wants either. So no, they are very independent in that, and I think that's really important. Yes, we do offer like an 11 plus pathway, but that's very much for children at schools who end at the end of year 6. Because we love them to stay at prep school for 7 and 8, and that is so important. And they still get, I think if their school finishes at the end of year 6, they still have that leadership and prefects and all that kind of responsibility because they finished their school. And not to be sort of almost pulled out ahead, just like Colin was saying, because then they come back. So it's finished the school. So no, I think it is very much about finding the right school for each child. And just in terms of the testing, and I do agree there's far too much testing, and what I always say is, like, please don't tutor. Just because the whole point of admissions, and if we get this right, the children end up in the right school for them, and that's where they'll thrive. And they'll look back after their time and say, this was fantastic, loved it. And yeah, if it doesn't go so well, then they don't enjoy it. So trust the testing, trust the admissions.
Thank you. Just sort of looking a little bit at the academic side, Colin, families often talk to us about sort of prep schools being the environment where you foster a love of learning, and secondary schools perhaps being where they sort of delve deeper and pick up those other sort of independent learning skills. What do you think are the sort of classroom advantages in being a distinct prep school, or what do you think parents should be aware of in a different environment?
Good question. I think what you'll find is that our teachers, it's unfair for me to say this about Chris and Felsted because I've been there. It's an amazing school, as I have been to Charterhouse. But you could probably say that we're geared up for teaching children to 13 plus. That's what we're all about. If you go to a senior school, they're geared up to teach GCSE and A levels. That's what they're about. If you're an all-through school, which I have been part of, I know how it works. We still had the individuality or the independence to still nurture and look after the children from 13 plus down to ensure they're prepared for the next platform to go onto their senior school, which would have been our senior school and that sort of all-through school. I suppose in a sense, I'm a great believer in treating the children at prep school age like adults, but forgive them like children. And what I mean there is that they feel they're getting this independence and they're a big fish in a small pond again, but we actually realise they are children and they will make mistakes. They are human, and that's really important to us. So I think in a context of a prep school, they get a huge amount of opportunities. We're giving them the best teachers we've got, giving them the best sort of coaches we've got, and we're very much geared up for ensuring that they leave us really, really well prepared. So when they're chatting to Chris and Iona at an interview stage process and they've been asked, have you done this before? Yep, I've done that. What about this? That's great. And then they can start narrowing down, going into the senior school, what they really, really want to get their teeth into. So we're giving them all the opportunities, this love of learning, but in the senior schools they can start sort of focusing a bit more about what makes them tick and what they're really, really interested in. And as you go into sixth form or International Baccalaureate, you can even be more focused. And before you know it, they'll be at university if they wish to do that, or in life. And I can assure you, hitting year 9, we've got 3 children all done it. 5 years goes very quickly. And before you know, they're driving and they're wanting to borrow the car and all the rest of it. So it happens very quickly. So enjoy the prep school years.
Thank you. Chris, for Felsted, you're not needing to prepare children for common entrance or 11 plus or 13 plus. Does this give you the opportunity to sort of spread a little further in the curriculum? I know I work a lot with international schools, and I see a lot of international schools use those sort of years as an opportunity to develop a little bit more interdisciplinary learning, or the opportunity to pick up another language. And can you tell us how that works at Felsted?
Yeah, correct. I think the freedom to have a bit more breadth in the curriculum there, maybe look at areas like critical thinking and philosophy, but also subjects like computer science and robotics, and really give the children a breadth of experience, so that when they do move up and they have to make choices, they can make more informed choices. And I think the global part of education is also something that's become so important for all young people. And we offer the IB alongside A levels, but that kind of filters down through our whole curriculum, that we expect all of our children to have a global experience in their curriculum, in their learning, in their interactions, so that they're developing as global citizens as well while they're going through. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in any curriculum if you look at it properly. And hopefully all schools here will be doing that. They'll be looking at how they can make the most of the time in the classroom, not just to pass tests, because, and as important a skill as that is, I think that's got to be a subsidiary to being a good learner and being ready to go out into the world and be successful.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's look a little at the sort of social, emotional, culture side of this. Iona, do you think that school transitions build independence and resilience? I'm sure you have many families come to you worrying about that transition, and will their child thrive? What do you say to them?
I say trust the process, but yes, no, they do, and I think it is it's unnerving for parents, but it's also really exciting. And I think children having that opportunity to go into a new environment, it really does. Resilience, yes, but I think they're ready for it. They are so ready at 13, and it's interesting. So yes, we're 5 years in a senior school. I see quite a lot of sixth form. We have quite a large sixth form intake as well. And I find that a lot of those students are coming from schools where they've moved at 11 plus and they've sort of done their 5 years and they're ready for a change. But it is, as we've been saying, it really, really depends on your child. It really depends as to whether they want that move, whether they're ready, or whether they are so happy where they are. Actually, my nephew's at Felsted. He's seriously happy there. It really just depends on the child.
Chris, and what about at Felsted? I mean, I'm sure that you don't have every single child starting at 4 and graduating at 18, but, and I'm sure friendships, evolve, but does that all through model allow you to sort of build a school culture and a school community that stays strong across all of the stages?
Yeah, I think you want the values to underpin the whole educational process, so that parents and children know what they're coming into and what they're a part of and what the expectations are, and the same for the staff as well. I think with an all through school, it's probably incumbent on us to make sure that we keep regenerating as you go through. So even though it's one school, you move from prep to senior at 13. That's a significant change, and the children still have to be prepared for that, and that still has to work effectively. Big intake at 16 as well, big intake at 11. So actually, for us, our job is to sort of recreate the change that you'll have if you move at 11 or you move at 13. Whereas for schools that are doing that anyway, their job is to make sure that that's as seamless as possible. And I think but both models where you approach it in that way work really well for the right people and in the right place.
Do you have sort of graduation ceremonies for children moving between the different sections? Do you celebrate?
We celebrate, definitely. I wouldn't say we have graduations. I think that's become a little bit of a fad. But you should certainly celebrate. I think finishing a stage. We saw, particularly in COVID, you saw how undermining it was not to finish a stage. And I think recognising that with young people, whether that is going through the Year 8 Leavers programmes in a prep school, or whether it's completing your GCSEs or finishing at the end of school, marking that is really important. Those moments matter in children's and families' lives. So I think you definitely want to mark and celebrate that.
Colin, I'm sure you see that. I'm sure your Year 8 Leavers celebrations are huge.
Yeah, they are actually. It's interesting. I've been in my current school for a term and five weeks, but in the end of the summer holidays, I got an email from a girl called Anna, and she was graduating from a senior school very close to us, and she sent a photo of 21 Daneshill children who are graduating in 6-2, and leaving to go off to university and travel the world. And I didn't know her, but she sent a photo and saying, I think you'd be really proud. I know you're new as the head, but you'll be really proud. Please share that with all the staff, which I did. And they all said, I remember teaching them, look at them now. And it was just amazing. So that end game of them actually moving on, the end of their travels in senior school is really important. And taking Chris's point, yes, you congratulate them in moving on from year 8 to year 9. And touching on Chris's point again is that you also have an intake coming in those years as well. So the dynamic does change in all through schools.
Thank you. Just sort of touching a little bit on some of the practicalities. Iona, particularly as a director of admissions, what, from a sort of parent's point of view, what are the sort of practical considerations that families should think about ahead of a transition in terms of admissions, pressure, travel logistics? You know, Chris touched on the fact that sometimes, you know, it's a family decision.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it very much is a family decision. And I think there's so many incredible schools here. They're all incredible schools here. And I think it's, go and have a chat with them. Go and see if it sort of fits what you're looking for practically, which is very important, whether it is you're looking for co-ed, you're looking for single sex, or whatever it is, you're looking for location. And then come and visit. That is the most important thing. For us, we really rely on the prep schools for that advice as well, just trying to make sure that, you know, the children are, as I've said before, ending up in the right school. And I think, yes, spend time looking at the schools, talking to the headmasters and the headmistresses from the different prep schools, and then really engaging in the process. So, yeah, and we'll guide you through. All the schools will guide you through.
Lovely. I don't know, Colin, Chris, if you want to add anything onto that.
No, what I'd say is the admissions team at senior schools want to make it work. So they want to make it smooth as possible. When you buy into a prep school or a junior school, listen to the team when you're looking at next schools. Don't get on the bandwagon because everyone's going to that school. Look at your child. I really say that, please. You'll talk to your friends at dinner parties or going for a walk or having a coffee, but just think about your child, what's best for them. And sometimes it's easy to sort of get caught up in the conversation. You should go to X school when maybe Y school is probably the right place. And then if you speak to the senior school admissions teams, they will really guide you and make sure the pathway is clear for your child to have a really smooth transition. Gone are the days when, you know, you'd turn up and I don't know anyone, before you even arrive, your 13 or 12-year-old arriving, they will know the school and be part of the community before they even start. And I'm sure that's the same with Felsted and Charterhouse.
No, definitely. I mean, we do once all the testing and all that nonsense is done, then there's a whole induction program that goes on actually when a lot of the kids have taken their tests in year 6. We've got 2.5 years, and they'll come up and they'll meet the cohort that they're joining with. They know which house they're joining. They know a lot of the staff. So when they turn up on that, I don't know, early September, and it's like, where am I? They know exactly where they are. And that makes such a difference to the transition. It really does.
And be prepared to ask the question as well. You know, if you feel you aren't getting the answer, it won't be because there's a lack of will. So to ask the question. The admissions teams are always there to help, and the whole staff are there to help. So,
thank you. So obviously a question on many parents' lips at present are school groups and watching schools combine. Colin, as a firmly independent prep, is this a question that parents should be asking? Are they worried? Do they ask whether you're going to be joining a group?
Yeah, I mean, we're not. We're in a very strong position. It's a very a great school with a great history. However, probably Iona might be able to answer this better, but I think once your prep school becomes part of a senior school, I think you touched on it earlier that, yes, it'd be great for a number of children to come through to the senior school, but it goes back to the point is finding the right school for your child. And being part of a bigger group can be really great in so many ways, but I think, again, it goes back down to finding the right school for your child, trusting that gut instinct, and not getting carried away, or everyone's going there. Just make sure you make the right choice for your child.
No, I completely agree. I think another side of the benefit, though, that we've seen is, and actually you probably have this, Chris, at Felsted, a lot of our senior pupils are involved in the prep schools and doing workshops with the younger pupils. There's lots of lovely, that sort of cross-pollination, if that's the right term, which is just really great for the younger kids and also for the older students and also for our staff. So there's lots of shared resources and that side of it, which has been a huge boost. It's been really, really good. But it does go back, though, when it's about your children. Yes, go and look at all the schools and see.
Thank you. I was going to ask each of you to sort of give one bit of advice to parents trying to make a decision, and perhaps I will, but I think it's coming out quite clear that it is, there is no one size fits all, and it should be that you should ask around, visit schools and keep asking the questions. But would any of you like to add something to that before we open up the floor for questions?
Can I just say, trust the school that you're currently with and listen and talk to them, because they are in the market, they understand the schools around them. They'll have a huge knowledge about that. So please listen and talk to them. If you've got very, very young children, you're doing the right thing coming here today, because you can speak to lots of people and you pick up on themes and feel different feelings about the schools, and then you'll make a great choice.
I would just say the same. Yeah, and also, yes, just trust the process from all the different schools, because we all want the same thing, which is that your children will thrive in their school.
And I would say involve your child in that process as well. And I think sometimes people can be swayed by the sort of dinner party circuit and be too worried about reputation or status of the school, but actually you've got to find the right fit. And I think that's really important, that you might want to look at a particular school because so and so thinks it's the most important place to go. Maybe it is, maybe it's right, but also make sure you're looking for your child, and that's a very different thing from just looking at past history or anything like that. So it's a very personal process, and hopefully a really exciting and enjoyable one as well. You get to see some great schools in the process of looking.
Absolutely, thank you. And that's exactly what we always say at the Good Schools Guide, no one size fits all. So can I open it up? Would anybody like to ask any questions?
Good morning. You keep on saying trust the school, trust the process, and so forth. But as a parent, there tend to be times where there's a disconnect between the school, how the school viewed the student, and how the parent view their kids. So how do we prevent that disconnect? What questions should we, as a parent, should ask the school to ensure that we're on the same page, that we understand our kids from the viewpoint that the headmaster understands them?
Do you want me to come in on that? I think that's a really, really, really good question. I think that the answer is that question shouldn't be solved at the point of looking at the next school. You've got to tackle that as soon as you feel that happening. I would say you need to be talking to the school straight away to say, hang on, there's something here I don't understand about what you're saying, or we don't seem to be on the same page here. Because by the time you're looking at moving on to the next school, you need to be working together collaboratively.
Yeah, so how do we start that conversation from the beginning? Because the only time we tend to know that there's a disconnect is when we're looking at the next school. So how do we start having that conversation before to kind of nip it in the bud? So when we start looking at the next school, we're on the same page, we're aligned.
That's an even better question. I would expect somebody to be coming in and seeing me, or if not seeing me, seeing a housemaster or a house mistress early on. And I do think you get, as a parent now, you get a huge amount of information from the school. And if you aren't getting that, then you should be pressing to get more information, because you should understand what the school is trying to do for your child, and hopefully your child is progressing well. I don't know if the others would like to add to that, though.
Yeah, you shouldn't be left in the dark. You should be knowing exactly where your child is academically, pastorally, extracurricular. If you do feel that, you need to sit down with the school and have a conversation. And you need to have regular updates. A good head will see you one week and then follow up the following week to see how things are going. And even if it's an ongoing conversation from there. And I am aware that sometimes you're thinking of X school and the advice from your current schools Y and W. And they've got to back that up with reasons why that's the case. And sometimes it could be the entry process with regard to what that school needs. And there's got to be the transparency around information is the key. Yeah.
Thank you. Yep, got another question. Thank you.
If you're considering a through school, as far as when to test, because I know there's 7, 9, 11, 13, do you have any advice on what's a good entry point?
If you want a through school, you probably want to start at the start of the school if you can, and then you avoid the testing process altogether. You might have something, but not significant. I think it depends on the child and the family there, because if you're starting at age 7, you're starting at age 11, you're starting at age 13, it is a different experience, and it depends what's in place already. If you're at a good school already, you don't need to jump early to make that move. You can make that transition when it's best for you, when it suits you best. But I think that really does depend upon circumstance. Maybe with some schools where there's an ultra competitiveness in terms of academic entry, it can be advantageous to go earlier rather than later. But generally, if your child's at a school where they're doing well and they're happy, then I would say you want to hold that transition point as long as you can, because why give up on a school that's working really well?
And just to back that up, if your child's happy and enjoying going to school, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child if you have several. Just let them be in it, ensuring though they're still making progress and still having the opportunities they need to learn. Sometimes they go, oh, we really love the school, it's so fantastic, but then they suddenly come back to you a year later. You're never going to get that year back. So if they're enjoying and loving school, keep them where they are until it's right. You'll know.
Thank you. Iona, do you want to add anything to that from an admissions perspective?
No, I think it's been pretty well covered. I think, if your children are happy and settled, it's the most wonderful thing when they're desperate to get to school. I always remember with mine, by the end of the summer, they were absolutely desperate to get back, as was I. But no, so yes, finish at that transition point. And there are sort of key transition points which we've touched on, like sixth form, for example, which can be lovely for children for that sort of stepping stone before university. It just really depends on when they're ready.
One more.
Right, thanks. So I see a lot of school headmaster or head teachers now have like title of CEO. It feels like now running as a company. Like, should I, as a parent, be worried about that? It will mean it's much colder, or like not like an old, I guess, a traditional school educator. Because I'm trying to judge whether I need to avoid a company like feeling school versus the traditional educator type of school.
Who wants to jump in?
I can tackle that if you like. Only that our head is also now the CEO and the head. But ultimately, he's an educator, as we all are. And our passion is about school and children and teaching. So I wouldn't be worried about that. I think there's a confidence with a larger group. But it's all about feeding back in and supporting all the schools within it. So, no, personally, I wouldn't be worried about that.
I mean, I'm a head, not a CEO, although I suppose in effect you're still the CEO of the operation. But I would say in my time in education, the improvement in pastoral care and the focus on well-being and supporting children's mental health through their education as well has just skyrocketed. So even if the titles have changed and the roles that people play are different, I think the care and the support for children has never been better than it is today. So I think you can be confident, even in a setup where the titles maybe look a bit colder, the experience isn't.
I think also the CEO or the head has to be child-focused, that they're educationalists ultimately, but also look at the team around them, because they dictate, there's an old saying, a fish only gets rotten from the head down. So if the head's doing a really good job and they've got a really good team around them, they're the team who are going to do the heavy lifting and working with your child really closely. If you've got a really, really good team around them and you're confident in their pastoral and academic structures, and it's going really well, I'm pretty sure the head's doing a pretty good job of that. But they should be able to see you at a concert and say, hi, how are you, and have a conversation. They shouldn't be aloof, they should be very present. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we've probably got time for one more question. Is there somebody over here.
thank you. My question is basically about practicalities with through schools and location, because obviously a 4-year-old can't board, or they can't travel on buses, they can't go very far. Do you find that everyone is reasonably local for a through school compared to more varied separate schools? How has that practically kind of worked out?
Yeah, certainly our reception children are all from families that live locally. I suppose it gives families the flexibility, because we have boarding as you go through the school, and a lot of boarding as you move into the senior part. It gives parents the flexibility that maybe at that life stage they live locally, but then later on they might move elsewhere but still want their children to stay at the school. I think that generally speaking, the whole boarding market has become a more local one anyway, where not many families now are travelling more than sort of 2 hours to schools, because parents want to be part of that education. They want to be at the concert, they want to be at the match, they want to be able to speak to the teachers if they're concerned. So I think that generally schools have got a bit closer to home anyway, but boarding maybe gives the flexibility to start local and move somewhere else.
Thank you. Yeah. Any nothing to add?
I think as children get older, we have to enable the logistics as families to be easier for you to get to the schools. So minibus service, accompanied train trips to get to and from school, that sort of thing's really important, particularly when they're at a younger age. I'm sort of thinking sort of 8+, to be honest. So those are sort of things we look at as a school to make sure it's easier for families to get their children into us each day and home again. Thank you.
Well, I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. It's been brilliant to hear about the security or stability of continuity and at all through school, or the growth that can come from change. But, the important message is it's about matching the best fit to your child, as well as balancing that wider family picture. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks very much.